What's up, everyone? Today we're going to talk about Granddaddy Purple, the strain that forever changed what cannabis looked like, and more importantly, what people were willing to pay for it. You've probably seen it before, those deep purple buds under the glass at your local cannabis shop, with those frosty white trichomes on top. It stands out from everything else on the shelf, and believe it or not, that was completely by design. If you're new to this channel, I cover the history of cannabis, including the strains, the people, and the stories that made this whole industry what it is today. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get into it. So the story starts in Oakland, California back in 2003. There's this guy named Ken Estes who's in a wheelchair, working out of his home. He had a motorcycle accident years before that left him with some serious chronic pain, and cannabis was actually helping him manage it. But Ken wasn't just a patient, he was also a cannabis breeder, and he had a very specific goal in mind. He knew the Bay Area market inside and out. He knew cannabis shops had just become legal under Prop 215, and he knew that if you wanted to sell cannabis behind glass in a display case, he needed something that would stop people in their tracks. So he crossed two plants together. The first was Purple Urkel, which was already well known in the Bay Area, and the second was Big Bud, which was an Amsterdam strain bred for massive yields. The result was something new. Now let's talk about why that color mattered so much. Before Granddaddy Purple came along, purple cannabis was already a big deal in the Bay Area underground market. It commanded what people called a purple premium. We're talking about $5,000 to $6,000 per pound, compared to $3,000 to $4,000 for regular high-quality cannabis. That's a 30 to 50% markup just for the color. But here's the interesting part. Purple cannabis isn't actually any stronger than green cannabis. The color comes from pigments, the same compounds that make blueberries blue or autumn leaves turn red. They don't get you higher at all. So why did people pay more? Because in a legal market with no testing and no regulation, the color was a signal. A deep purple bud told you that the grower knew what they were doing. It meant they had a controlled indoor setup, and it meant they had real genetics. So Ken Estes dropped Granddaddy Purple into Oakland cannabis shops in 2003, and it exploded. Within 2 years, it was on menus across the entire Bay Area. Within 5 years, it had spread to shops across all of California. And within 12 years, it won first place at the Denver High Times Cannabis Cup for Best U.S. Indica. No California strain had ever moved that fast before. A lot of it just came down to the way Granddaddy Purple looked in a glass case. Under the warm shop lighting, sitting next to regular green buds, it looked like something from another planet. Ken himself described it as looking like a diamond on black velvet. The visual appeal did most of the selling. Customers would walk in, see it, and point. But tenders didn't have to explain anything because the product just sold itself. Granddaddy Purple basically set the standard for what cannabis was supposed to look like behind glass. Now, it's not a coincidence that this all was happening in Oakland. Oakland was further ahead on cannabis policy than anywhere else in California at the time. They had the first city-sanctioned cannabis shop. They had officially deputized growers to produce cannabis for medical clubs, and they had a whole ecosystem supporting the industry while the rest of the country was still in prohibition mode. Oakland also had a culture moment happening at the same time. The hyphy movement was taking off, with artists like Mac Dre and E40 putting out music that defined the era, and sideshows happening all over International Boulevard. So the same neighborhoods that were creating California's most distinctive music were also creating its most distinctive cannabis culture. And in that culture, purple already meant something. It was a status symbol. It was prestige. Once Granddaddy Purple took off, the counterfeits came quickly. There were a few ways growers faked it, and the main one was temperature manipulation. If you drop your grow room temperature down to about 50 degrees in the final weeks of flowering, non-purple strains will sometimes develop purple coloration. The buds weren't from real purple genetics, but they looked purple enough to fool people. The other fake was just label fraud. Cannabis shops in the 2000s had almost no verification requirements, so a bud tender could slap a Granddaddy Purple label on any purple-looking product, and nobody would really know the difference. By 2007 and 2008, experienced Oakland shop operators said the market was flooded with what they called GDP-adjacent product. Some of it was the real thing, but a lot of it wasn't. Here's why Granddaddy Purple really matters in the big picture. It wasn't just one successful strain. It set the template for the entire commercial cannabis industry that came after it. What Ken Estes proved was that if you had a named reader with a real story presenting a visually unique product, you could command a premium in the cannabis market for years to come. That formula became the playbook. Every famous strain that came after it, like Girl Scout cookies, gelato, wedding cake, they were all working with the logic that Granddaddy Purple had established. And the purple obsession itself triggered a whole new generation of strains, including Purple Kush, Grape Ape, Purple Punch. Some of them were real purple genetics, but a lot of them were just trying to capture the premium that Granddaddy Purple had created. And here's the thing that makes Granddaddy Purple different from a lot of the other strains we cover on this channel. Ken Estes actually put his name on it. Most strains from that era were created by people who either couldn't attach their names to their work or just chose not to. But Granddaddy Purple came with a face, a story, and a creator who stood behind it. That's pretty rare in cannabis history. Ken is still in Oakland today, and he's still involved in the industry. Granddaddy Purple is still on shelves all across the country. And that's the story of Granddaddy Purple. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more cannabis history content. I drop new videos every week or so on the strains, the people, and the stories that shape this whole industry. And if you want the full story, be sure to check out my book. I go into way more detail on everything we covered today and a lot we didn't. Links in the description.